Hi, this is Gary with Today for Tomorrow, and I'm here at Burke State Park in sunny South Florida. And today I'm going to talk to you about plastics. Plastics are everywhere in our world. They're in the cars we drive, they're in the computers we use, they're in the packaging of the food we eat, they're even in the clothes we wear. We simply can't get away from plastics. And that's okay because plastics are useful. We need them, maybe. But it's not okay because there are some really serious environmental and health consequences that can come with some of these plastics. And that's what I want to talk to Julie Long today about. I think I know something about plastics. I know she knows more. She's going to share her knowledge with us today, and we're going to learn about plastics and what we can do with them. Julie, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Gary. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And as Gary says, yeah, I know something about plastics because I became concerned. I'm a pediatric surgeon. I've practiced in Broward County for over 25 years. And over the course of my career, I saw some things that didn't fit into the normal health pattern of things I'd learned about in medical school. I saw some problems that were happening to children that there was not an explanation for. And I think a lot of those problems are related to environmental toxins that we're exposing ourselves to. And children's bodies, because they're smaller, they're still developing, they have a higher metabolic rate, they eat a lot, they're processing the toxins in our environment just with their food. So it's a big concern.
Yeah, the plastics. So one of the things we did in our household, the little bit I know. So let me back up a second. I know about, and maybe our viewers might know about, some things like forever chemicals. Perhaps you've heard of PFAS. Maybe you've heard about phthalates. Maybe you've heard about styrene, vinyl, PVC. And so you may have an idea of maybe not all plastics are the same. Maybe some plastics have certain chemicals that are harmful. I'm wondering if you can speak to just some general knowledge about what are these things in the plastics that are bad for us?
Yeah, that's a big question. So we've all seen those little triangles on plastic things, and maybe we think, should we recycle and whatever. Those numbers give us some clues about what is in that plastic there. There's a group of plastic products called plasticizers. The plasticizers make plastic softer, more pliable. And there's different plasticizers that are added into products depending on what their end use is. So there's phthalates, which are the number 3. There's the bisphenols, bisphenol A, and there's, I think, D and F. And then there's some brominated plastics. And they will make things slippery. They'll make things pliable, which we like. In my world, professionally, plastic is used in the IV tubing that delivers medication and life-saving equipment to babies in a neonatal intensive care unit. They are literally everywhere, and they are problematic for particularly children.
I'm noticing a saucepan there. It looks like a Teflon pan, and that's making me think about when you're talking about these non-stick surfaces.
Yeah, so Teflon, I mean, first of all, plastic, when was it created? It's not 1,000 years old. It was basically the 1950s, the chemical revolution post-World War II, and all these products came out and it made things, Tupperware was invented, and it was so convenient, right? And then Teflon was created. Nothing stuck. Unfortunately, this stuff in these pans, it breaks down and goes into our food. Clothing became fire retardant. We were trying to protect our children. We didn't want their PJs to catch fire. So any flame-resistant clothing is coated in plasticizers that are harmful. And, unfortunately, our first responders are exposed to huge doses of these chemicals.
And these are the quote-unquote forever chemicals, right? These are the chemicals that are getting into our water supply, quite literally.
Yeah.
And we're drinking them. And we now know that, they're carcinogenic, and there's problems with them.
Yeah.
Spider here. Try to save the spider
No,
that's
it's
on
okay.
you. There it goes.
It probably wouldn't eat much. I think I don't know how we're going to get rid of bisphenol other than source reduction. Some of the other plasticizers, I think, can be diluted, but you know, in an individual level, it's like, what can we do to protect ourselves and our children? And unfortunately, just washing products off isn't going to do it, because they're literally in the products we're buying. They're in the tissue of the food we're eating. The plastic is in there, and plastic is in our bodies. Now science has gotten to the point where they can identify plastics, and we found it in blood, we found it in lung tissue, we found it in placentas.
Wow.
We found it in the human heart. It's not good there. It's not supposed to be there. But actually identifying it, the process to do that was problematic, and I think we're to the point where we can pretty much say, as the technology progresses, any part of the human body they look for, they're going to find plastics.
That's a sobering thought. And so we figure it's in our water, it's in our food, it's in our utensils for cooking. I mean, it's in our plastics that we store our food in. It's in the bags. It's plastics everywhere. So what can we do on an individual basis in our own households to help keep ourselves a little safer?
We don't need to store things in plastic. We can use glass containers. If you want a lid on something, you can use silicone. Silicone doesn't have plasticizers in it. So that's safe. And silicone can actually be microwaved. One of the problems with plastics, even the ones that say they're microwave safe, as the product is heated, more of the petrochemicals dissolve into the food and in the air around it. So you don't want to heat things in plastic. So source control. I think as individuals, we can have a big impact on the products we buy, even in our stores, to say, the grocery store, I don't want my vegetables wrapped in plastic. They don't have to be. Farmers market, they don't grow that way. It isn't necessary. We're all going to go home and wash the vegetables anyway. Having them wrapped in plastic doesn't make them any safer to consume at all. In fact, it makes it less safe to consume. There was a pretty fascinating little report by Consumer Report. We all trust Consumer Reports, right? They tested 81 foods for plastics, and they found across kind of spectrums, they found plastic in all of them. One of the products that had the highest amount of plastic in it was an organic canned food that's given to children. And when they looked into that, they talked about it's not just in the containers.
I was going to ask, was that the BPA liner on the can?
Well, there's inside the cans. When you look at cans, there's a coating inside of canned products, and that has petrochemicals, that has plasticizers in it, so that gets into the food. But they hypothesized that a lot of it is the way food is produced. So in a mass production line, people on the assembly line wear gloves. They have plastic. They have rubber belts. They have sorters. So literally, as the food is being packaged, there's plastic added to it. So as an individual, there's many reasons to eat less processed food, but one of the reasons to do it is you're going to eat less plastic. If you're cooking your own food, you're not going to be intentionally adding plastics to it.
No.
Whereas the process of mass producing food does add. One of the other things that's troubling are takeout containers. There's polystyrene, which is bad, and we know that's carcinogenic, and there's no recycling of that. And so companies have moved away from that, but the little cardboard containers are coated with things to make it not stick as a plasticizer. So at every level, you can go so far as to you're eating out, you're going to take your leftovers home, bring your container from home. You have to remember to do that, and you'll get some funny looks, but you'll actually change. People will look at you and think, oh, wow, I never thought about that.
I've never thought about that, but that's a wonderful idea, because that's one of the steps we've taken in our household is we threw out all the old plastic Tupperware. I don't want to pick on a brand, the plastic food containers for leftovers, and we brought in the glass ones with the silicone tops. It was an easy change to make.
Yeah.
But I never thought about then taking that, because I always bring food home from restaurants because I don't eat that much. Plus food costs so much. I don't waste. Now I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring my own.
It's a little
container.
behavior change, and when you start doing things like that, it makes people think, oh, wow, we can do that. And it's great to get rid of the glass, but not everybody can necessarily afford to do that in one step. The point is, if you
get rid of the plastic.
If you have plastic in your house, don't cook in it, don't microwave in it. Transfer it to a glass bowl if you're going to heat it. I think that's important. Look at everything you buy. Don't brought this jacket, it was given to me, hospital I work at, nice, yay Joe DiMaggio, 100% polyester. So this is a petrochemical. It's plastic. When it's washed, the fibers go into the water. So that's where the source of these microplastics that people talk about. Another thing that has become a convenience item that we lived without are those little packages of detergent the pods.
The little pods,
right?
yeah.
That plastic gets into the water. It doesn't dissolve, it doesn't go away, it's plastic. They stay around forever. It just goes into the water. Pillows, the stuff, everything, carpeting, our pillows, our draperies, all this stuff has fire retardant stuff, which are chemicals. Pillows have it, so again, we can't get rid of everything in our house, but we have to look at what we've got, what we've surrounded ourselves with, and particularly what we surrounded our kids with. Heating milk in a plastic bottle and giving it to your baby is not something you want to do. It's really you don't want to do that. So you have that's the one thing. If you're going to purchase one thing and you've got little ones at home, make sure that their utensils and what they're eating off of does not have plastic. It's going to go directly into their body. It usually takes many generations for disease processes to evolve. And there are problems that when I was a kid, we didn't see autism the way we're seeing it now. We didn't see some of these endocrine problems. We all are aware of not only adult obesity, but childhood obesity is really on the rise, and this generation of kids is going to have a shorter lifespan than we have because of this. And there are direct links to plastics from those things. There's a place in Louisiana where it's oil country, St. James Parish, which is known as Cancer Alley.
Right.
And it is it's a swamp of petrochemicals people are living in. So there are places that are really known by the EPA and other scientific organizations, but I think we all have to be really aware, because you go anywhere now and look on the ground, you see it all over, and it's there's also the plastics that we don't see that are up in the air we're breathing. And
so if you have plastics and you can't get rid of them, right? How can we live safely with them? And part of that conversation, and we talked about this earlier before we started the video, is if you want to do right by the planet, you want to recycle. That's something we all are taught. We need to recycle, and it's a good thing. But there's even a problem when it comes to recycling the plastics. So I want to be very careful here not to tell people don't recycle. But I do also want to inform a little bit about some of the problems as you've come to learn, and I'm starting to learn with the recycling process. Could you
Yeah.
speak to that?
Yeah, I agree completely with you, Gary. I'm a, you know, we were hopeful that we could recycle our way out of this problem, and I don't think I know that's not true, and I think we've been told that by the manufacturers of plastic. Uh, a lot of people are decreasing their energy consumption, driving more energy efficient vehicles, looking for whatever. Well, the petrochemical companies have to do something with that oil. And now there's been a huge shift in the last 10, 15 years to increasing that petrochemical, diverting to increasing plastic. Well, we should remember that only 9% of all the plastic that's out there is actually recycled. And it's not recycled to another useful product. It's downcycled. It's the process for recycling plastic involves adding more harmful chemicals to them to degrade them and change their to make something else. So it's not a good that's not a good solution. The
No,
good
it's
solution
certainly not a solution.
It's going upstream.
I've heard as well that when they're doing the recycling process, they have to basically grind up the plastics to do it, and then you're releasing more of these nanoplastics and these microplastics or whatever the proper term is.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're taking a big piece of plastic that you can't inhale and you can't and doesn't get into the water supply. Now you're making all these millions and billions of tiny pieces of plastic that can blow away and they can get all through the environment. So it just seems like, to your point, the better solution is to not buy the plastic in the first place.
Yeah.
Again, though, I'm torn with, if you have the plastic, because it's almost impossible to get away from it, should you just throw it in the trash, or should you make the effort to recycle it? And that's maybe not something either one of us is qualified to answer, but that's a quandary.
Yeah, well, one thing you said is it should be disposed of properly. Now, what does properly mean? Every piece of plastic that's laying on the ground at this park is going to end up in the water. Every piece of plastic on the ground, unless somebody picks it up, is going to go down the gutter, is going to go into the ocean. And I know you love the
Yes.
oceans. I
Yes.
love the ocean too. So that's number one, pick it up. Take it somewhere and dispose of it. Should it be recycled or should it be landfilled or incinerated? There's people that are working very hard on these problems and improving that process. And the newer incinerators release a lot less toxins into the environment. So you have to get kind of wonky and know something about how old the incinerator is in your area, what kind of recycling process does your area have to decide what to do with your plastics. But
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah,
Yeah,
you really have to do a lot of research to even understand if you're doing the right thing,
yeah,
or you're really inadvertently doing the wrong thing.
yeah.
It's hard to say.
I know the right thing is pick it up off the ground,
There
and
you
I
go.
know the right thing is to say to not buy it.
On the individual level, I know in our household what we've done, replace the Tupperware with the glass. Again, natural fibers instead of synthetics. I do, as part of the foundation, and just have always done the beach cleanups, and if I see trash in this park today, I'll pick it up. Plastic, it's always plastic. So properly disposing of the plastic. Anything else you can think of that we can just do to be better stewards in relationship to our own health and the planet as well?
I think really speaking up, because they're so ubiquitous, it's going to take policy changes. But on the other hand, the marketplace responds to consumer demands, and individuals have a lot more power than they realize. I'm not normally somebody that, makes a fuss in a store, and I don't make a fuss, but I tell people, no, I don't want the plastic bag. I've got a bag, please put it in there. And they'll say, well, but it's going to be cleaner. I say, no, thank you, it's not cleaner, I don't want it. And just tell them thank you, and I say, I don't want it ending up in the ocean. And that some of them look at me and say thank you, and some of them look at me a little strange. But I'm convinced every piece of plastic that we use is going to be around for 1,000 years or more, and is going to end up someplace that it shouldn't be. And so we have to refuse it first, and then the marketplace will respond to that. You know, thank goodness we will we use our purchasing power and our ability to make decisions, and also, you know, to tell people, because a lot of people are not aware. So I'm so grateful for you asking me to come talk to you. It's very distressing what I've seen in kids' health, you know.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that for a second. I shared with you before the video that I had taken many, many years ago, I'm not going to say how many, course at University of Florida, and one of the professors was talking about the research he was doing in relation to plastic and some of these compounds on a molecular level. If you think of it as like Legos, the molecule of estrogen was very similar to one of these plastic compounds. And so that was essentially all these plastics that are in the water supply around the world, it doesn't matter where you are, were affecting the virility, in particular of the male. He was studying alligators, the male alligators, but the male humans, the male mammals, males in general. And he had made a quip to the effect of, you know, all of you men out there, college-age men, are actually a quarter the man that your grandpa was, because of these chemicals affecting your basically your testosterone levels.
Yeah.
And I know you've seen this firsthand in your practice.
I have. I want to talk about the health things that I think are directly related, health conditions directly related to plastic. But you brought up something that I didn't say, and it was such an oversight. Besides refusing it, if there was one thing that any of us could do that would be good for our health and good for the planet, it would be get rid of plastic water bottles. The water in the wall of the plastic leaches chemicals into the water. So every plastic water bottle in South Florida has been in a warm warehouse somewhere. Yeah. And anytime plastics, more of the chemicals are in there. And so even if the water that was put in there had very low levels of chemicals in it, when it sits in the plastic, it increases. Mm-hmm. And not to mention, then the plastic that they're in doesn't get recycled, can't be effectively recycled. And the cost, I mean, unfortunately, places like Flint, Michigan that had a water problem, they were stuck with that. Every municipality, you can go to their website, you can find out about your water. Some of the bottled water, if you read the label, Dasani Waters, some of it sold here says, filtered from municipal water at Pembroke Pines. So you're paying extra money for them to put it in a plastic bottle so you can drink more hydrocarbons, and then the plastic is going to go into a trash can or go to a recycling facility that can't process it, and and there we go. And the amount of money people could save. And people think, oh, it's so convenient. There's nothing inconvenient about a reusable water bottle. It's quite convenient.
Right.
They come in metal. They can come in. You know, they're quite nice. They work very well. So that's
a big one.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It is huge. And really, I think a large part of this is the plastic that the kids are eating is affecting their endocrine system. The American Academy of Pediatrics had to change the norms for what was normal for a girl to go into puberty, because it was happening so often. And as a physician, if something is happening outside the normal range, a bunch of expensive medical tests have to be done. Pediatricians couldn't evaluate all the 8 and 9-year-old girls that had puberty. So it became normal. It's not normal.
No.
It's environmental. The other thing about obesity, so some of these plastics, there is suggestions that they're actually affecting the genome, that they affect how genes are manifested, not in just in the next generation. So with generational problems, you think, well, you know, that family doesn't know how to eat healthy food. Well, maybe they could eat healthier, but there's, I think, in some cases, something more serious going on that we're just beginning to understand. You know, when I was growing up, everybody didn't have allergies.
No.
And now if you think about it, everybody's got allergies, and people that didn't have allergies when they were kids have allergies now. And I think it's because of the things that we're breathing and ingesting into our bodies that are causing these reactions. So we're living in a plastic world, and we're eating plastic food.
Oh my goodness, that's a great sign off right there. Julie, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. I know I learned a few things. I'm telling you, I'm going to start taking that glass container to the restaurants now. That's something I never would have thought of.
And you'll get some funny looks, but some people are going to go, wow. And there's going to be people, you know, you can be a trendsetter.
Yeah.
We can set good trends. I guess the last thing I'd like to say, other than thank anybody that's interested in this topic, is don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk to people and just mention it, you know, behaviors that they can do. And there's some great organizations doing good work in this area. There's Plastic Free Florida, great website. They've got a lot of helpful tips. I probably forgot most of the things they would recommend. There's Oceana that does great work. So there's good organizations in our state that are trying to make our environment cleaner.
Yeah.
I'd love for them to put you out of the beach cleanup business.
Yeah.
Right?
Right? I'd rather not have to. I enjoy being on the beach. I enjoy cleaning it up, but I'd enjoy it even more if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Remember, it's the little things we do in our daily lives, like pay attention to these plastic, make these small changes. We do them in our own lives every day. It makes such a big difference for everyone tomorrow. Thanks for watching.